All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the recap. I am Michael D'Angelo, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Big D, Daryl Ortiz, and we're going to be recapping Monday Night Raw and Friday Night Smackdown from the week, what I guess it would be November the 27th, Raw, and December 1st, SmackDown, if I can...
The first SmackDown of December.
First SmackDown of December. And post-Raw and SmackDown for Survivor Series. So a lot of things are happening. Obviously, a lot of big returns happened at Survivor Series. Most important one, R-Truth. Obviously.
Yes, R-Truth is back.
R-Truth is back. And then, of course, the most important one, Randy Orton, and then some guy named Chick Magnet Punk. He should probably change that name. But we'll get to all of that goodness. As a matter of fact, without further ado, Big D, take us through the discussion for Monday Night Raw.
So Monday Night Raw, of course, opening up with the Hell in a Cell men's match, right? Oh, not Hell in a Cell. Sorry, War Games. I'm already jumping ahead here.
Hell, I know. I was like, wishful thinking. That would have been better than what we saw at War Games.
I would have loved it, but no. Opening up with the War Games men's match highlights, of course, showing the almost cash in, the return from Randy, and then of course they had to show the CM Punk return. Of course, that everyone was itching for and talking about social media. I think what caught me funny was I thought it was so funny because Michael Cole started saying it over and over until I think halfway through he stopped. He was referring to CM Punk as like the most imposing and controversial. I'm like, no, he's not. I mean, CM Punk's a great wrestler, I feel, but you know,
imposing does not describe Phil.
Sure. Brock Lesnar's imposing.
Brock Lesnar's imposing. Roman Reigns is imposing.
Very true.
Roid Randy Orton, which I'm loving it, but Big Randy Orton now, he's imposing.
Speaking of,
Phil
that's
Brooks
who started the show off. Yeah, you hear Randy Orton, come out and loud pop, of course, and he's just soaking it in as always, but looking jacked as hell, like he's ready to go. Talks about, of course, what it means to come back, why he did. Talking about of course, he did the favor for Cody Rhodes because he had never been in a War Games match. Again, that little bit of Randy that everyone talks about, that a little bit selfish, right? He's like, I did it for me. First ever War Games match that Dusty Rhodes, who I admire, started. So talking about that piece there. Then of course, as in typical Raw fashion, there is the interruption from Rhea, and right not before that though. Randy did talk about issuing receipts to the Bloodline, which I'm sure you'll have some piece on that because that's not until SmackDown.
I got that. Yeah.
And again, saying, and I mean everybody, insinuating Jey Uso since Jey's on SmackDown, right? So I'm over here thinking, that he's going to talk more about, coming after Jey, or because Jey's right there. That's low hanging fruit right there. But of course, interrupted. Rhea Ripley comes out, telling him, she's again just trying to push buttons, doing Rhea things, talking about how his return was upstaged. Of course, hinting at CM Punk's return, saying that it was bigger than Randy's, pretty much. And of course, blaming him, I guess their beef with him now is that he stopped the cash in. That, let's be honest, more than likely wouldn't have happened anyways. It would have been another Baron Corbin botched cash in. But, again, just trying to pick at him, trying to get a reaction from him. And I actually took a note of this that I really enjoyed what Randy said. Because, of course, he's like, I've been out, I've been watching. It's always been Rhea this, Rhea that, mommy this, mommy that. He's like, well, Daddy's back. And the whole crowd just like blew up, which I thought was awesome. Great reaction to that. It was awesome. So of course she said Judgment Day is now his enemy. And then of course gets jumped from behind by Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough. Which, poor guy, he's there in a neck brace still, I guess, from War Games.
JD's there just to be cannon fodder for Randy Orton. I kind of realized that after this week. I'm like, hey, he's just there to just get beat up by Randy Orton.
Essentially, right? So, of course, then we assume what's going to happen is a one-on-one later, which we're not sure if it's going to be. Well, he does RKO JD McDonough, but we already know it's going to be for Dom, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. We'll talk about that match later. Then, of course, coming up after that, another big match that I actually really enjoyed was the number one contender tag team turmoil match. That was probably, as I'm looking at my deals here, my match of the night, honestly, just because of all the teams involved, right? So you had Akira Tozawa teaming up with Otis from Alpha Academy going against DIY. DIY, I mean, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, you already know, are phenomenal together. They do their thing. Yeah. They do what they do best, and it's tag team wrestling. Johnny and Tommaso, both in-ring technicians, just putting on a clinic in the game, in the match. And of course, Tozawa, very entertaining, a good wrestler. I almost forgot how good of a wrestler he is, till I was watching this match and seeing how he can work the crowd, how he can, sell those moves, and again, just working really well, gelling well with Otis, matching that energy, which is really hard to do because Otis is very high energy, and I thought that was really cool. I like the part where Otis had ripped off his shirt to do the caterpillar, and Tozawa couldn't because he's little.
Yeah.
So then Otis just goes, he just rips that sucker open. So of course that was pretty cool. It was a good little start off there, and of course one of my favorite spots was Tozawa was coming off the top rope, and Tommaso Ciampa just hits him with a rising knee square on the money, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. It ends with a roll-up, the most devastating move in sports entertainment, right? The roll-up. Gargano gets the pinfall.
We saw that a couple of times this week.
We did. Oh, my God. Yes,
we'll get into that on SmackDown. We've seen
the devastating roll-up.
WWE, it's unbelievably devastating, obviously. WWE, please, you use this way too much. Like, you cannot have... They probably have 40% of the matches in with the surprise roll-up. Yeah. And it was like,
it's not surprising anymore. Like, we know it's coming.
Do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as it happens, we're doing this again.
Do a finisher.
But I will say for the tag team term... Yeah. Yeah. And so, stop kicking out of finishers, too. The tag team turmoil, I agree. Tag team turmoil match, I enjoyed it probably the most of anything that I saw on... Well, as far as matches on Raw. Right. I enjoyed everything with Randy Orton. I appreciated the fact that it happened during the commercial-free first hour, too. Because I hate it when they cut to commercial. It's like, oh, we'll be right back. And they cut to break. And so you're like, okay, nothing meaningful is happening. And then you come back and it's like, oh, well, by the way, here's what happened during the break. Or they do the picture-in-picture thing.
Yeah,
absolutely hate that.
I have obviously a little insight on that here. Yeah, definitely. I won't be touching on that later, trust me.
Yeah, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's nice that we're not getting, like, this match is going to run long because they're running the gauntlet, so it's going to run long. I was like, okay, cool. You don't have the pacing getting broken up, and it was well paced, and it was, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I did too, and then of course, so after that happened, Creed Brothers come out, and that was lots of fun because now you have again Creed Brothers. If you watch them in NXT. Great tag team. They work very well together. They're almost, dare I say, like Steiner Brothers 2.0, right? Even though Rick Steiner's son is in NXT and killing it, but it's almost like I don't know, that's just the vibe I get. They're really good. They work really well together. Their moves are awesome.
The vibe I got. Yeah, the vibe I almost got though was when I was seeing, because their unis are so plain looking that I was like, it's almost like Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin when they first came out, where it was like, oh, here's the two really accomplished like collegiate wrestlers, but they just had no style,
and the most basic.
It was kind of, and then they paired them with Kurt Angle. Yeah, most basic gear, and then they paired him with Kurt Angle, and they made him like his lackeys, and it worked really well. So when I saw, I was like, oh, I'm kind of getting a Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin vibe from these two, and they were good. They were good. It was just kind of like, they got to work on the look.
Yeah, and they'll get there. I think they've always been a very simple, plain look. But again, I know that in commentary, Michael Cole had referenced that the Creed brothers had already beaten DIY. So I'm kind of like, there you go. That's what's going to happen. And sure enough, I'm talking about the Creed brothers being undefeated and all that good stuff. But again, good match between them two. Technically sound work across the board. They work very well together as a tag team. And again, I think one of my key moments in the match that I enjoyed was Julius had a nice reversal. There was going to be the meet in the middle, but he ended up catching Johnny Gargano, excuse me, and doing a power bomb and then lifting him right back up again and holding him up, turning him around and having the Brutus ball done, which is when you see it in slow motion, it's a little comical. I think they need to leave it at regular speed because it's just literally just him like tucking himself up and just landing on somebody. But I prefer the live speed. I don't care for the slow mo version of it because it just looks a little off. But it's a great finisher, kind of paying homage to the Doomsday Device, right? But a little modified version there. But so then of course, who comes after that? The New Day. Then again, I'm like, wow, that's going to be a great match. New Day, amazing tag team, always have been, always put on great shows. And sure enough, working the arm of Julius to eliminate again, New Day just doing New Day things, the high flying, the quick tags, stuff that they're really, really well known for, that they've just honed in and done really well. And I know this isn't part of the show, but I would absolutely love to see New Day versus either Lucha Bros or New Day versus Young Bucks. I know they've kind of teased with each other and stuff, but that would just be an amazing either match. I'd be so happy with 3-way match. Screw it, why not? But yeah, that was pretty awesome. So of course, Brutus Ball again eliminates New Day, which Julius rolled up, and that was kind of crazy to see because where was it? The Creed Bros showing that. Where was it? The oh, excuse me, I thought I was gonna cough there for a second. But the Brutus Ball was awesome. Yeah, sorry, Brutus Ball was awesome. Imperium was the next one's in, and Imperium very aggressive start. They just, again, they got a point to prove to Gunther over there. They're over there just, hey, we need to get a win. They're desperate. They're playing aggressive. You could see coming down the ring, Kaiser kind of lecturing Vinci. So you're like, all right, there's that tension building up again because now Vinci's in charge of Kaiser or whoever's in charge now. That's the little mini semi battle in between that we talked about. But again, there was a lot of different things going on in that part of the segment. It was the last round of the tag team turmoil. You had Vinci, getting, Kaiser out of pinfalls and vice versa, working well together. But one of the things that you saw was a really nasty powerbomb by Julius on Kaiser. I think I could have swore I saw the back of his head bounce off that mat, and I was like, oh, but he sold it so well. It was amazing. And then of course I-Rake, typical heelish moves. Just little things like that. But I like the save from Julius on the Imperium bomb by Brutus, and then they jumped into a superplex off the top ropes, which was awesome because you had Kaiser up at the top, and Brutus just hops over, gets on top, and that was just amazing. Brutus was down. Julius hops on his back, gets onto the rope. He slipped, but he saved it, and that made for an excellent spot to end it off. With, of course, the Brutus Ball.
And that's right. When it happened, I was like, so I was like, oh, he recovered pretty quickly.
I know. I was like,
even Michael Cole was like, hey, oh, hey, that's pretty amazing that he slipped. And I was like, Michael Cole, don't stop calling out that he messed it up. And I was like, it was a great recovery. Just let it go.
It was a great save.
But he pointed it out immediately. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure someone was yelling in his ear after that, not to be doing that. But of course, Brutus Ball
was like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Oh, go ahead.
I agree, but it was a great save. I love that save. That was it, because I feel that's what was needed to actually start like the closing segment of the match, right? So of course, hit the Brutus Ball and Vinci victory to the Creed brothers, which I feel was a great call. I would love to see them actually win the tag titles. I'm not a fan of when you set up two individual competitors, solo competitors, and just put them into a tag team. I've never really been a fan of that. I prefer they come in as a tag team, and it's just me personally because they have a bond together. They have not this like odd couples thing or whatever they try to do with other teams. I know they got Balor and Priest, which is great. They're the tag champs and everything for now. But I honestly personally feel that the only reason they have Priest and Balor as the tag champs because they don't know what else to do with them, because I feel like they don't want to put Balor in for the main title yet. Priest is kind of flirting with that with the Money in the Bank briefcase, but I don't know. I just wish they would let an actual tag team hold the titles like they did with the Usos and the New Day. So hopefully, and of course the Street Profits, but hopefully this will mean the Creed brothers will finally get their shine and become tag team champs. I think that would be amazing to see.
Yeah, no, I would say so. And yeah, I think, and for me though, I felt like at the end of it, you kind of made Imperium look weak because it's like you're the last team in, and you can't seem to put away the Creed brothers. And I think you mentioned this kind of post Survivor Series. They're kind of heading towards like, let's break up Imperium, and you saw that like in the backstage segment afterwards, where there's like the tension between Gunther and like, and there's the animosity starting to grow. So it's like, they kind of telegraph this, kind of heading towards a breakup there. But all in all, it was an enjoyable match.
Honestly, my favorite match of the night.
Again, I appreciated the fact. Yeah, I appreciated that no commercial interruption. So it's a big plus.
that helped it so much because it felt like nonstop action, which I thought was amazing. It was so much fun. I liked watching that match. After that, of course, they got to get the crowd to calm down. A few backstage segments. You had, Judgment Day. I only touch on the backstage segment for this one just because, there goes Damien, taking the blame, being upset about the loss. He's like, just say it already. And everyone's like, no, we're not worried about you. Like, it's fine. But notice how Rhea is the one putting him at ease and telling him to go check on so-and-so, or, hey, how's so-and-so doing? She's the one she's still, it's kind of like that. She's letting him feel like he's the leader, but, really we all know it's her. Yeah. And that's going to implode. It will implode eventually. And I'm wondering if they're saving that implosion for when he cashes in. When he cashes in finally.
Yeah, and I think
I don't know.
They're sowing the seeds for it, so that the timing will be interesting on when they decide to pull the trigger on it. But it's there. It's definitely there.
Oh, it's there. Yeah. And of course, Cody comes out to huge pop, of course, and thanking his team for the win. I like that he was I know I said it last week too, but I like that he was the one that took that did make the pinfall victory because of course, his dad created War Games, right? So, again, he got emotional on that. Mm-hmm. He said it was an honor winning War Games because his dad created it. Then, of course, being the first one to claim for the Rumble, which now we're going to start seeing those spots. I'm entering in the Rumble. But it'll be interesting to see where they put him in. I really... so, I feel that he's going to be he's going to break some sort of record at the Rumble. That's what I think. Just because of the way that they're letting him... come out. I think it's Triple H maybe feeling bad about the way Vince kind of did him dirty with the whole Stardust, and because he hated that gimmick. I remember he's been on record numerous times that he absolutely despised that gimmick and he hated it, but they made him do it, right? But I think this is his kind of this is Triple H making good on, hey, let me make this right for you. That's what enticed him back probably. Yeah. But one of my favorite parts of the night came on when he announces himself for the Rumble, and all of a sudden the lights go off, just a spotlight on him, and you're wondering who it was. And it hit a little sore note for me because it kind of reminded me of like when The Fiend comes out, and because the lights just went out, and he's like looking around, and behind, it's the Shinsuke promo. When we've been getting promos from Shinsuke about he's calling this person out, been waiting for him. Now it turns out he was waiting for Cody, so he says, "I'm tired of waiting." And as towards the end of that promo, you can hear the crowd getting loud, which insinuates obviously Shinsuke's in the ring. Sure enough, they cut back over. Shinsuke's behind him, hits him with the red mist, which was a nice visual because it's red mist, so it's dripping out of Shinsuke's mouth. And then he's sitting there while Cody's just wrenching in pain. He takes his Shinsuke bow, and then his music hits and he takes off. Now, I really enjoy this version of Shinsuke versus the other one. I did not like when they were forcing him to do his promos in English. I think it sounds more natural, of course, in his native tongue. And the subtitles are a great touch. He doesn't have to have a mouthpiece. He doesn't have to have somebody talking for him, a manager or anything like that. Rather, you just let him give the promo so he can really put that emotion and that energy in his tone and his inflection. And I think that's what makes that work so well. So I like this more aggressive Shinsuke. He's more confident, he's more arrogant. Of course, his heel version of Shinsuke I think is awesome. So this is obviously going to set up the feud from Cody and Shinsuke, which will maybe spill into the Rumble. I guess we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. So I'll give you my thoughts on it. So I'm going to start off with, I love me some Shinsuke Nakamura. I think he's great.
Of course.
And I love everything that he does. And I agree. And I love this version of him. I think the problem that I have with it is they're building Cody. He comes out and he declares for the Royal Rumble. And then it almost turns like, okay, well, let's kill some time before the Royal Rumble. Let's feud with Shinsuke Nakamura. So filler. And that's always where at this point it's like you're talking about, Royal Rumble's coming up. This is like the filler to give him something to do. And I was like, oh gosh, why are you going to do that with the Shinsuke Nakamura feud is going to be the filler before the Rumble. Yeah. That for me just kind of deflated it a little bit because I felt like have them work a real program. It'd be better if one of them had a title. So it left me feeling a little empty. And then I'm kind of thinking ahead going, clearly I feel like they're going to use the Rumble obviously and have Cody be a big part of it. Right. Does he win the Rumble this year? Does he challenge Roman Reigns? What's that going to look like? if they do follow through with that, then he's not going to lose that feud to Nakamura. So it's kind of like it's almost like a foregone conclusion of, okay, so he's going to beat Nakamura and during this filler piece. And I just feel like that program probably deserves a little more emphasis. Yeah. So so I've mixed feelings about it.
Right. And I agree. I completely agree, because I feel like Shinsuke, and I think about at the first thought, Shinsuke versus Cody, I'm like, wow, that's going to be a great match. You know, both men very good in the ring.
Yeah, I was like, man, they will be fantastic. They will work wonders together. It's going to be great.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right. I feel like maybe they should have held off on him declaring for the Rumble until after that feud. Maybe he comes out, does his speech of, you know, how he appreciates everyone and this and that, and then let the lights cut off before he makes the announcement for the Rumble, right? Before maybe he's about to make it and the lights cut, and then you got Shinsuke, then he builds up the feud, works that, and then I think after he gets his one over on Shinsuke, or however they want to do it, then he can declare for the Rumble. Whether they let him lose to Shinsuke, you know, and then his redemption line, his redemption arc is going to be now at the Rumble. But now you're right. They kind of deflated that, because obviously he's going to win. Obviously he's going to win that feud. Shinsuke's not going to get over on him.
Unless Triple H was like, psych, I'm not making it up to you. I'm not making it up to you. You're going to lose all your momentum heading into the Rumble. Unless it's some sort of an epic fake out. And then CM Punk runs out and like punches him in the back of the head. And he's like, it was me and Phil all along. And they high five. Unless something like that happens, it's just, I don't know. Like it left me kind of going, gosh, the timing's not great. But, you know, hey, maybe they know better than I do. Probably do.
Maybe.
But just feels weird.
Yeah. So speaking of filler, actually, not just filler, but this was actually a pretty decent match to come in. This came in second only, but I wouldn't consider it a match. It was the Bronson Reed versus Ivar. And again, that started off as a match, but then they both got counted out. And not much crazy happens during the actual match, but it ends up being a good post-match angle, right? Where they didn't care about the count. There was the killer, what was it? The cannonball off that blue case of the tech case that they had out there, the stands, and the crowd was counting, you know, chanting "Holy crap!" and they were editing it out and all that stuff. That was great. I feel like that should have been the match, though. You know, maybe because these guys had such a blood feud going, make it a false count anywhere match and just let them, because they're both very big men, but they're both very agile, which is a great thing to have in both competitors, right? They can feed off of one another, and a false count anywhere or like a hardcore match between the two would be epic and amazing. But again, just letting it be a double count out seemed kind of bland. Made it just, why did you even bother having a match? Just show them fighting backstage. I mean, you did the same thing, essentially. So that's why I say kind of filler, kind of
not. Well, and it was, and I'll tell you, I did not like this match. So I didn't like it for a couple of reasons. I think it started off really slow, because the actual match that they were working, they are both so physically big. They're both very physically strong, but they're also both very physically big. Yeah. And there were quite a few, I would call them botches, or where they were trying to do things where I was like, that didn't look great. Like the power slam from Ivar, he kind of just kind of heaved him to the side. Like they both were struggling with each other's weight to do a lot of things. And so
they're not used to that.
There were several times where I was like, oh, this doesn't look really good. And they look like they're almost dropping each other on their heads. And so I was a little disappointed there. Then when it got into the count out, I was like, what? Like I hate when they do count outs. Yeah. Just can't, because I'm like, okay, well then this was for nothing. It made sense when they built it into, hey, they don't care, and then they're brawling. And then, the best segment in that match was the cannonball. And it got the biggest reaction. But as I was watching, I was like, man, I bet this was killer live. Like, me watching it on TV is not awesome. But I was like, man, if I'm out there in that crowd, I'm betting this is pretty awesome, and it made up for everything that happened. Yeah. But watching it on television, I was like, I'm not getting all of that from being in the arena, and it's a very different experience. So when I watched on TV, I was like, ugh, like this doesn't play well. And hopefully they will spin it into something that's bigger. If you want to do a feud, or you want to do a no disqualification or a hardcore match, whatever you want to do,
whatever they want to call it,
down the road, I think they set it up well. Yeah, whatever they're going to call it. I think they set it up well, and I think that'll make sense to do. But
I feel this could have been done with like a backstage brawl, like trying to break them up. You know what I mean? Like something like where
they absolutely could have. Have they not even made it down to the ring? Yeah,
that too.
Speaking
like,
of filler,
I remember who. Definitely. So a lot of backstage segments. Definitely had, of course, multiples, but one of the ones I think I wanted to touch base on too was there was a segment with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler and Zoe, and it's hard for me to take Zoe Stark as a babyface. That's what it seems like they're trying to put her as, when she was a heel with Trish for so long. And I feel she does better as a heel. I feel it comes out disingenuous when she's trying to be a babyface. It's hard for her, and it's not because she's a bad person. She's a great wrestler. She's worked her way up. She does really good in the ring. She's very strong, very powerful. But I just feel like they're having a hard time finding matches for her that aren't title related. So I think that's kind of probably where they struggle. So of course, Nia Jax, the bully of the backstage, the ender of careers, Nia Jax over there. But she of course talks her crap.
The botcher, she legitimately hurting people.
Yeah, the liability. But yeah, so they of course leads into the Nia Jax versus Zoe Stark match for the night, right? She gets it's official, whatever. But what's kind of been annoying me throughout this show is this is probably, I would say, maybe the second or third time it happens, where like they let one person come out, do their entrance, and then they cut to a backstage segment that's completely unrelated. In this case, it was Gunther and Miz, where Miz is saying he wants to, he wants to get the rematch for the title.
Very weird back and forth between those two. Yeah,
it's just awkward with them. But yeah, and then of course that's where you talk about with the Gunther talking to Imperium, like, hey, go talk to Adam Pearce, get this DIY thing taken care of. But then I'm like, they didn't fight DIY in the tag team turmoil, but like, I don't know. I guess that's who the feud's going to be with, and is DIY still. They're going to keep that going instead of maybe now they're pissed off at Creed Brothers, and maybe that's where he tries to focus on. But so that happens, and then it cuts over to Nia Jax coming out, which again, this whole match was just, I mean, it was all right. It wasn't anything great. I didn't really care for it. And I do like women's matches. It's just this one was not as good as it could be. And I think it's mainly because Nia Jax is very difficult to work with, as it was very evident in the early going of the match. Zoe, almost botched jumping onto the rope there herself. Commercial break, of course. Now all of a sudden Nia Jax is in control, and then commentators just trying to sell that Zoe's still hurting from War Games, and I don't like that when you try to use that as an excuse. I mean, if she's still hurting from War Games, then they shouldn't have put her in the match. It should have been Shayna Baszler, because Shayna Baszler is apparently her BFF. Who knows? So again, Zoe trying to get an offensive flurry after Nia Jax trying to like pander to the crowd, but again, Nia Jax just dominates her and controls her. Senton, Annihilator, win. It's over. Not very eventful. Not much happening.
So, and here's the funny thing. So, going back to their backstage segment. So, maybe I'm the only one that thought this. Like, when Nia walked out, and I don't know if it was just people weren't standing on their mark, because Nia was standing in front of Zoe. And then Zoe was like in the background. And then Shayna Baszler was like kind of beside, and so she's like talking trash to Zoe, and Zoe's standing behind her and reacting behind her like this. And I was just like, like, this is so strange. Like, she's looking at Shayna Baszler, and she's supposed to be talking trash to Zoe, and Zoe's reacting to it like 3 feet behind her. Like, it was, I was kind of like, this is really awkward and strange. Like, maybe put like X's on the floor so everyone knows where to stand. Like, it was just odd. It didn't play well. And then when they got to the match, so my biggest thing was, and I said this before in the Survivor Series, I thought that Rhea Ripley and Zoe's match was the match of the night for me. I thought it was great. And there were times where I saw Zoe and I was like, there's a chance that they might actually let her upset her. There's a chance she might win. And I was convinced. And then so the following night, your reward for her is to go out and get beat clean as a whistle by Nia Jax.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, are we done with Zoe? Is that it?
No,
like,
nothing.
It's like this. No interference, no shenanigans. bonsai drop, get the heck out of here. And it was just, it was one of these things where it just felt like you're just squashing her, like at the expense of Nia Jax, because we really need to build her up. Like you just have her go out there and beat her clean as a whistle, and then 1, 2, 3, and it's over. Yeah, that kind of stuck to me. It didn't feel good. It didn't make sense from a story, because I'm like, well, where are you going? Right. Is she going to turn on Shayna Baszler? Because there was a little comment about, hey, I don't need you to defend me, or I don't need you to say this. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, are you guys like trying to spin this here? But so I didn't like it, and it just kind of bummed me out, because I'm like, Nia Jax isn't going to do anything with this win anyway. But
right. I mean, it's not going to take her anywhere. They're not going to put her in the title picture. It's not. I mean, it's not. It's not. And I stand corrected. It's not going to lead to anything. Yeah, and I stand corrected. The recap on the IC title match was the backstage. That was after this match. Before this match, that's why it bothered me so much. My notes were out of order. The backstage segment in between Zoe's and Nia's entrance was R-Truth in the Judgment Day's little corner that they have, where he's eating the jelly rolls he found and makes a mess in the comic book thing. But again, it really, when they do stuff like that, right? Like you don't take the match serious, because now it's a comedy skit. R-Truth is like, I'll be your fifth member, and they're like, dude, it already happened. And like it's just the whole comic skit is, it's funny, but again, at the expense of like the Nia Jax and Zoe Stark match, is just didn't add anything to it, and it just cut in between their entrances, which just makes it weird. Because then I was watching, and I was like, did I miss the match? Did the match already end? Like, wait, I thought Zoe was out, or Nia Jax was out, and then it's like, no, here you go, now you can watch Zoe's entrance, and it's like, oh, it's so weird. But yeah, the recap on the IC title match, of course, Miz trying to get it, but he's not. I wonder who they're going to put in for the next one. I feel, and I know it's not happening, because obviously they announced already who's going to go after the title next week. But I feel like the best one would have been Jay. I think that'd have been I think they need to build him up slowly, kind of like how they did with Shawn Michaels when he left. When he left the Rockers, and he kind of like worked his way back up. That's just me. I just feel like you can't go from being tag team champion, being with the Usos forever, and then tagging with Cody Rhodes on his solo venture. But I think that should have been the route, but that's just me. So Seth Rollins comes out, crowd starts chanting CM Punk. Seth is clearly pissed off. He does not care for CM Punk, even after all the little videos that they were showing where Seth was like, and you could tell that was legit, because Michael Cole and dang it, slipped my mind already. But Michael Cole was holding him back, and it was just like, he doesn't leave that desk, and he did, to stop Seth from going out there. But then again, nobody was really too happy about that. I'll get into that here in a bit. But yeah, I think that he kind of played with it. He was like, all right, get it out of your system, like, whatever. I don't care about that guy. He didn't even say his name. He was like, he did. He said, do your CM Punk chants, whatever. But he just kind of blew him off. But again, he called him a hypocrite. Said it doesn't matter. It talks about his title being the most important championship in the industry, which we all know it's not. But it's, of course, Roman's, reign. But they don't.
Of course.
Everyone knows that's like the consolation championship, because nobody's good enough to take it off of Roman yet.
It's a handsome looking title. It's a handsome looking title, but yeah, it's the consolation prize.
It is. It really is. But then, of course, he was talking about, says that he spoke with Adam Pearce, who he knows who his next challenger is going to be. Gets interrupted, surprise, as Drew McIntyre talks about refocusing, that he spent too much of his attention and time on Jey Uso and the Bloodline, and now he just needs to refocus and go after the title, and he wants next. And he says he should be the one up next. And Seth, of course, agrees, says, you do deserve a rematch, but someone else also deserves one more than he does. And then so he's like, well, just tell me who the opponent is. And Seth didn't want to say it, and of course, hesitant tells him that next week he'll face Jey Uso for the title, which infuriates Drew McIntyre. And that headbutt he gave him was awesome. It busted him open hard way, but I think it's because Seth still had the mic in his hand. I think Seth was gonna say something before Drew just nailed him with the headbutt. Because if you go back and look, he has the gash here, and then he has like a bruise forming, which of course is from the mic I'm like, I think that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, I like the aggressive side of Drew. I don't like. I prefer him to be, like the Scottish psychopath or whatever they would call him, the Scottish warrior and all that. I'd rather him be crazy and just because he's an imposing looking. That guy's imposing. Let him be pissed off and like run roughshod through everybody. Starts going at Seth like crazy. And of course, who comes for the rescue? Jay. Jay and Seth's double super kick, get him out of the ring. But part of it kind of, it was hard. I don't know if this was intentional. I think it was completely unintentional because Drew came out in full heel fashion, all leather, including his kilt, which he loses, and he's just in his boxer briefs, wrestling like that, which is fine, I guess. But it's kind of added a funny element because you're like, oh crap, that wasn't supposed to happen. I thought he had his tights or his trunks under, that's what I thought he had under, like normal, but yeah. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, then you see Jay kind of focus his eyes on the title, picks it up, takes a look at it. Seth's like looking at him. He just hands it over to him, and they kind of still be friends. I don't know how that's going to work. I feel that obviously Jay's going to lose that match, whether it's going to be interference
from McIntyre.
Of course.
Yeah. So there'll be some shenanigans where there'll be interference from McIntyre and he won't end up winning. But then McIntyre's fighting Sami Zayn next week, I think. Like they did another backstage segment.
Yeah, there was a backstage segment on that one
which I'm like, really? Yep. Like McIntyre versus Sami Zayn? Like, come on. like if we're talking about people being imposing and being a threat to somebody, I don't think Sami Zayn's a threat to Drew McIntyre, regardless of how you tell the story. But they set that up.
Yeah, I agree. And then after that, you had the women's tag team title match, which was Tegan Nox and Natalya versus Piper Niven and Chelsea Green. Again, I tell you, I'm not a fan of teams just mushed together, but I mean, it is what it is at this point. I don't think they have a legitimate. Well, they do have some legitimate women's tag team teams, but they choose not to use them. So, of course, as with the other matches, the other women's match, the entrance is split with the backstage segment between Drew and Sami Zayn. So then you have Natalya and Tegan. They actually do work pretty well together. It looks mainly because Tegan's a workhorse. Like she's very good at what she does. I feel like watching this match and seeing her wrestle, seeing her charisma, I feel like she could make a solo run. She can. They just don't know how to use her. Yeah. So they pair her with Natalya. But then I feel like they continue putting Natalya because Natalya keeps bouncing back and forth in these different teams. She was teammates with many other people before her. And I feel like they're trying to find a partner for her because I think they're trying to do like a women's version of the Hart Foundation, which you can never have under the Hart Foundation, first of all, right? But because of who her dad is, I feel they have a hard time letting her go or letting her just kind of, stick to like the mid-card picture, but they just want her to be somewhere there. And I don't see her being like a legitimate champion, unfortunately, because of the way that they push her right now. I feel if they had her refocused in being like the mat technician that she is, because she is a damn good wrestler, I think she could also be a great solo by herself, but they have so many women that they can choose from now, unfortunately. It's hard for them to actually find work for her to do. So they put her in these kind of matches. So again, they had a nice double team move together. They worked together. But of course, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven, they work really well together. My favorite move for that match was the code breaker that Chelsea Green gave Tegan. And then that turned into the senton from Piper Niven, which was a great, nasty looking move, which again gave them the win and they were able to retain. But I like how every time they show that they're winning, Piper Niven's in the ring making the win, and Chelsea Green's outside somehow rolling on the floor because she got beat up, and it's kind of really showing that Piper Niven is really the champion. She just brings Chelsea Green along for the ride, even though they try to make it seem otherwise when they talk.
Yeah, well, and this is one where when I watched it, I was like, okay, clearly there's not going to be titles changing hands. As soon as I saw Tegan and Natalya was the other team, and it was like, we don't even have an entrance. It's like, we're just in the ring. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
So whenever I get that vibe, I'm like, it's like when you get that vibe, it's like, okay, clearly titles aren't changing hands here.
Right.
And I was going to say, Like, how many teams does this make it for Natalya? Like there's
6,
been
I
like
think.
50 different iterations of tag teams. It's like at least 50
well,
or
she was
60.
with Tamina.
It's got to be.
I remember she was with Tamina.
Yeah.
She was with, what's her name?
Well, I'm like,
Brooke.
go back over the last decade. It's like she has had so many tag team partners.
Right.
And it always feels like they've kind of relegated her to tag team for somebody. And it's always a tag team that's never really going to be a threat.
No, that's just filler.
Which is a bummer because Natalya is very talented. But it is just, it's like, hey, we need somebody out here for a match. And obviously she's a great technical wrestler, great worker.
She is.
But as soon as I saw that, I was like, like I was almost like skip. I'm like, I'll watch it. But it was, you kind of knew what was coming.
You did. And it's a shame. It is a shame. Then you had the main event, which was Randy Orton and Dom.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, you had a backstage segment between, of course, Jay and Randy. And Jay's like, hey, I'm a different guy. Like, legit scared of Randy. And I'm like, okay, if you're supposed to be next in line for the title, you shouldn't be afraid of Randy, right? He should come and be like, hey. So anywho, I'm not going to get into that part. But yeah, he talks about how he's turned a new leaf. And he said, oh, I know, I've seen it. And, we're good as long as you're not in the bloodline anymore. And he's like, no, I'm not. And he's like, all right, we're good. And he kind of gave that look, and I'm like, nah, you're not good. I'm like, you're not good, Jay. You're going to get it from Randy, but it is what it is. Then you had, of course, Dom come out, and then what happens? Cut to a backstage interview with Becky Lynch. I think they just needed to give her something to do because her interview really didn't go anywhere, just alluding to her next match. Like, and I think you know who it is, and it cut. I'm like, that's very awkward, and probably could have just not been a thing. It really could have, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably could have done without it, but
it is what it is. So then Randy comes out, of course, looking jacked AF as always. Now even more so. I think that's all he did while he was out, is just working out. So then again, Randy just running the table, but I would say about 80% of the match was side by side commercial. Because at that time, when that match was about to start, there was like 17 minutes left in the show, and I'm like, okay, they're gonna cut this match short because CM Punk needs time, or CM Punk's time is going to be extremely short. So, yeah, it wasn't a very long match. Very disappointing and deflating for a main event of Raw after Survivor Series, right? So, to me, in my opinion, I feel that this really could have been a nice squash match for Randy if they wanted to make it in the main event.
Yeah.
Fine.
I expected it to be,
of course, because it's Dom. I mean, when you looked at Dom, I think at one point Dom put in like a chin lock or a rear naked choke on Randy, and he looked minuscule behind Randy. I didn't realize how small Dom is. I was like, good Lord. But I mean, it's just one of those things that, it could have just been easily, if they wanted to make it a squash match, fine. Right? If it's the main event, all right, I get it because Randy's back. But I feel they could have done a lot better if he just would have, come out and just beat the holy hell out of Dom. They could have saved the commercial breaks. Again, nothing really truly crazy because, of course, Randy doesn't really take bumps. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that, but Randy hardly ever takes bumps anymore. He's been hurt too many times. Now he just doesn't take any bumps. Jelly Roll gets involved with JD McDonough when he starts trash talking him. Dom tries to go and gets shoved. Also gets a high five from Randy, and then ends with JD distracting so that Dom can get a 619. Missed the frog splash, RKO, and it's over in 8 minutes left in the show. So 9-minute match, more or less, 10-minute match. Nothing too crazy, but it's funny because when they showed Randy Orton in the ring, you could see in the crowd, you could see people leaving. They were like making their way out already to beat traffic. Because it was just, they were done. Very little time left for the CM Punk segment. And then, of course, the final was the CM Punk promo, right? But before we do that, what do you think about that main event?
I mean, in the same way, it felt a little anticlimactic to me because as soon as they got announced, you're like, Dominic Mysterio is not going to beat him. And Dominic Mysterio is not really going to be a threat to Randy Orton. And all this does, because they've done a good job of developing Dominic, and he's the NXT North American champion. And then you're going to have him go out here and just get basically job out to Randy Orton. It was like, I don't think it did anybody any good to make that matchup. It's like sacrifice somebody else to Randy Orton. Don't sacrifice Dominic. Right. And so that's kind of heading into it. I was just like, I wish they had thrown somebody else as a sacrificial lamb out for Randy Orton, but it kind of was what it was. And I expected it to be just like a hard squash match and not to. So it probably ran longer than I thought it would be. I thought at that point with shenanigans and interference and all that. So I'm like, it was fine. I just felt like it could have been somebody else.
Yeah, and it's funny. The only highlight of the match that I had personally wasn't even like not like Jelly Roll, but it wasn't the Jelly Roll segment part of it. I should say. It was someone in the crowd had a sign when Dom was coming out that says "Eddie is your real father." That had me rolling. Because somebody watched the whole
that probably was the best. That probably was the best, most impactful part of the match. Probably.
I love it so much. That was so great. So then, of course, CM Punk comes out. Crowds, of course, losing their minds. They love CM Punk. Gives us babyface
not
promo.
As much as they did at Survivor Series. So I do want to say that. I was like, this crowd feels muted compared to Chicago.
Yeah.
Because Chicago blew up for him. This time I was like, because this was Nashville on Monday.
Yep.
I believe it was Nashville on Monday, and then it was Brooklyn for SmackDown. And so Nashville was like, I was like, oh, it's more muted. I mean, they're cheering, but it's not like it was.
Yeah. He still got a good pop, but it wasn't like nothing like what he got in Chicago, which you knew that's what he was going to get in Chicago. I mean, if he didn't get that kind of a pop in Chicago, I think Triple H should be like, nah, bro, we're good. But yeah, it was good. Here's the thing. I didn't like the promo initially. It wasn't until I had time to marinate on it and just kind of think about what he said. And here's why. That changed my mind. So here's why. He comes out talking about he's, a changed person. He's home. He's where he belongs. He's back because he loves all of us, right? He referenced that a wise man told him that, you need to leave this place and come back to get everything you need from here. And of course, that wise man was right. A real humble CM Punk. And I was like, this is like overly babyface, right? Pandering to the fans. He did have one little stick to them where he's talking about he's a Blackhawks fan and at the Nashville Predators arena.
Yeah.
Which, typical, you have to get your
super
you have to get your
I'll give you my take on it after this, but go ahead.
Yeah. So of course he says that he, feels like it's a family reunion, all hugs and kisses. He said AJ sends her regards, so that means that she's coming back. Just like I said, I bet you. I hope so.
And I knew as soon as he said, I was like, Daryl's going to be excited about this.
I was like, yes.
The first thing was, man, I hope AJ comes out. I was like, oh, we've already got an AJ reference. We've got the seeds are being sown for an AJ return. But we'll see.
You know what the sad thing's going to be? It's going to be WrestleMania. I'm going to paint the picture. WrestleMania. Seth Rollins.
WrestleMania.
And Becky Lynch versus CM Punk and AJ.
CM Punk. And AJ, I hope not. I sincerely hope that's not going to be the case. But it probably will be, but I really hope not. I hope you're wrong.
No, I hope I am.
Anyways, going back to the promo, though.
So he said, back with everyone welcomed back with open arms. And he's like, well, almost everyone, because they're afraid, because they feel I set the bar higher. I hold the brass ring in my back pocket. And, talking about how he's making that much more of a big deal, and I guess pretty much saying, like, insinuating that Seth Rollins is now jealous, pretty much is what he's insinuating, because we know everyone knows how pissed off Seth was, right? But here's the trick. Here's the little twist. He ends it. The little thing comes on. The little copyright logo comes on, and then he has the mic out of his face, looks dead in the camera, and says, "I'm here to make money, not friends." Or I'm not here to make friends.
I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to make friends.
Yeah,
I'm here to
I'm
make
not
money.
here to make friends. I'm here to make money. That's the last thing
he said. Yeah.
And I was like, there it is. There it is. That's what's going to happen. It's this whole Two-Face bit, and he's going to be heel massively. And it's, again, good promo. CM Punk always delivers a great promo. I can't knock him for that. That man can talk on the mic. Very few can rival him. But no real just leaving it there. But obviously, because I think we all know it's going to be Seth Rollins for the title at some point. Obviously, because of how Seth is talking about him, he's talking about Seth. It's bound to happen. What I don't want to happen is he's entrant number 30 at the Royal Rumble and wins it, which will more than likely happen, because then that's how he'll get Seth. But I don't know. Yeah. So I turn to you.
So, okay, the promo itself was fine. Like, he's good on the microphone, obviously. He's not the best on the mic, and he ain't the best to ever do it. by a long shot.
Right.
But here's the problem that I have with the promo. I think the best promos are kind of they're working a shoot, and you have a combination of stuff that's part of the program and then people speaking from their heart. There were shades as he was talking initially that bothered me because I thought back to Bray Wyatt's return promo. Like the really sincere one when he came back in October.
Yeah.
And he talked about how, he stopped believing himself and you never stopped believing in me. And he talked about the fans and he thanked the fans because they never stopped believing in him and they helped him through this. And so when CM Punk was doing this whole, I came back, you guys never stopped chanting my name and you never stopped believing in me and I came back for you. And I was like, oh, don't steal from an actual sincere promo from somebody who had been wronged in every possible way.
Yeah.
And in his, obviously, he kind of worked in with the Uncle Howdy thing. But I was like, you're kind of emulating his promo a bit. But you're CM Punk trying to be like, I'm doing this for the fans, which know is not true. But I think he said that. And I almost felt like that little piece at the end was like it slipped out because he thought they'd be off air. Because I'm thinking, you say all this stuff about how you're a changed man, this, that, and then you go, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to get paid. Well, then you're not a changed man. The fact that he said, I've changed, I'm home. I'm like, didn't you get fired less than 90 days ago? Like, how much changing happened in the last 90 days? Nothing. You haven't changed at all. Here's his track record. He got fired from the WWE. He went to the UFC and fell out hard with them just because he was a terrible mixed martial artist who stole main card slots from real mixed martial artists who had worked their whole lives for that. He had no business being in there, fought twice, and was absolute just hot garbage. Then he went to AEW and caused all sorts of trouble and got fired there. Yeah. And less than 90 days after that, he gets hired by WWE. All that tells me is he's learned nothing. All he's learned is there are zero consequences for your actions. He can do whatever he wants. And now he's back in the WWE. I would bet by this time next year he's no longer with the WWE. I don't see him holding it together. I think he's going to do the same garbage that he always does. And here's a timely analogy, okay? CM Punk is like that crazy uncle that you see once a year at Christmas. And then he shows up at Christmas and you're like, oh, hey, it's Uncle CM, Uncle Chick Magnet. How you doing? I haven't seen him in a long time. And he's fun for like 5 whole minutes. But then by the end of the night, he's like super drunk and he's crying and he's winging punches at everybody. And then you remember why you only see him once a year, okay? Yep. That's CM Punk. And it's very, very likely that he has not learned how to be a good employee and how to be a good teammate and how to be a good person. And this is all going to blow up in everyone's face in 6 months to a year. That's how I felt about it. And I felt and his promo rubbed me the wrong way because I look at Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, and you look at what he went through personally, and he really was wrong. He did everything right, and he lost his job for cost-cutting initiatives. Yep. CM Punk has done everything wrong, and he gets tons of opportunities. So those two are polar opposites in how they left their companies. Like he was, and so there was a real sincerity in Bray Wyatt's promo, and CM Punk is like, you're just up here going through the motions. So that automatically shut me down. As soon as I heard it, I was just like, oh, I hate this guy, and I can't wait to see him fail. And I don't think I'm going to be disappointed. I don't think he's going to disappoint me. But it was just all kinds of this is why I can't stand CM Punk. And it's not good heel work. It's just like you're kind of a crappy person, and I don't want to see you do well.
It comes off a bit
but I'm not
natural.
excited to root against you and watch you lose. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to watch you at all because you're an idiot. That's kind of the way I feel about it. But I like one. Yeah, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I got you. I can see that, right? And that promo, again, that like when he said it, whether that was intentional or not for it to be caught on air, right? Time will tell, because if it was, obviously, we'll see it the next time he comes out, which I think is going to be on SmackDown next week, but or this week, I should say. Yeah, this week on SmackDown. But I just back, I would say, when was it? It was many, many years ago. I was watching Royal Rumble, and I want to say it was, I don't remember which one it was, but I do want to say that there was an entrant where it cut to like a Babe Ruth montage spiel about the greatest coming back and this and that. I was legit on the edge of my seat thinking that was CM Punk coming back to the Rumble, which I would have been ecstatic for. Fast forward. Now we're talking about, maybe 5 years, 6 years later. Here he went through AEW and everything. And I'm excited to see. I like CM Punk. I'm still a fan, all that good stuff of wrestling and everything he brought to it. I'm a fan of CM Punk from back then. I feel like seeing him in AEW, I think that kind of tarnished the image he upheld as being CM Punk and why he was able to hold out the way he did. And you fast forward now to being back in WWE, we said, "Oh, hell froze over," and I remember muttering to myself, "Nah, the pocketbook just got deeper." That's all that was,
Yeah.
I feel that he can be a great asset. He can be a great asset to WWE if he does become a team player. He does help the others build up. He does help. I mean, hell, you put him in NXT giving promo classes. I mean, that's going to help immensely. Wrestling clinics. He's good. He's very. It's just the way he performs and the way he is as a person, as a human being. Sometimes to the industry becoming a cancer and all that stuff, it kind of just tarnishes that image. And when he said, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. I'm like, yeah, there it is. That's what you're here for. You're going to do the Saudi shows because nobody else wants to do them. And you're going to get a huge pop in Saudi because they love old school wrestling. He's going to do the shows. He's going to take the titles. I wouldn't be surprised if they let him take a shot at at Roman Reigns, and it's such a shame because that return could have been so much better had his recent actions didn't precede him, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Well, but that's why I say he's not a changed man, and I think all those things are true, but there's a lot of ifs that were in there. There's a lot of ifs, Big D, and everything's about like if he's become a good team, like he could totally teach promos. He could do a lot to help the younger guys, younger guys and gals. He could do that, but he's not going to. No. It's CM Punk's just about himself. And he's not interested in helping bring anybody up. And if you see the way that he reacted in AEW and the way that he treated everybody backstage in AEW. So I only see this ending as just a massive train wreck. It's going to be like everything else with CM Punk. Yeah. And I do think like him going to the UFC and just getting wrecked by low-level mixed martial artists, it did hurt his aura.
It did.
Like, how do you come back and go, I'm the best in the world, baby? Like you can't beat the guys who were like the mid-tier guys in the UFC and like got absolutely wrecked by them. And so it's that sort of. It's not like Brock Lesnar going out there and actually winning, or Bobby Lashley competing in Bellator and going out there and actually winning. And so you come back and you go, oh, they've got some real legitimate like chops. And he did the opposite. He went out there and just looked like garbage. So, I'm kind of done with him. Maybe he'll surprise me. I doubt it.
Time will tell. I mean, time will tell.
Here's hoping CM Punk turns the corner. Here's hoping that it happens.
We shall see. But that was Raw. That was pretty much it. Again, not a whole lot happening. A lot of stuff. I'm very wordy in what I do. But again, it's just very typical Raw. My complaints are the commercial spots at the main event, the backstage segments cutting into entrances. Who knows? But maybe I'm just old school in that I feel like backstage segments should be left in between matches, not in the middle of entrances. But we shall see.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that as well. We shall see. And so then there was Smackdown, and we're running short on time. I'm going to keep it as brief as I can, but I'm going to hit on the high points for Smackdown. There's a couple of things that bothered me. But I will say this. It opened basically the same way as Raw. And so here's my explanation for that. On Raw, it was Randy Orton comes down and talks about the tag team or the War Games match and this and that, and then the Judgment Day came down. Well, SmackDown was Bianca Belair comes down, talks about the War Games match, congratulates everybody, says she's got some unfinished business with Damage Control, just like Randy Orton had some unfinished business with the Bloodline. And then Damage Control came down and taunted her. And there was a scuffle, and then it turned into later on, Bianca Belair is going to compete against Kairi Sane. So I was looking at it going, this is basically the same thing that happened on Raw. Like
it is.
To a T. They set up the main event. So that was a kind of a little bit of a bummer for me because it's like there's no originality. Did you guys not know? You couldn't think of anything else to do, but you literally had to set up and close out because that was the main event. Just like the main event was Randy Orton and Dominic Mysterio. The main event was Bianca Belair and Kairi Sane, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of the same thing. And Bianca Belair obviously coming up victorious in the main event, and with shenanigans that were going on. I think the biggest takeaway from that was, and I think you had mentioned this too. You called this on the Survivor Series show, was the setup for Bayley getting kicked out of Damage Control because they go down in that opening segment. Damage Control goes down. They're going after Bianca Belair, obviously Charlotte Flair, and Shotzi come down for the save, and then they get the ring cleared. They're standing tall at the end, and then the backstage promo, they're like, "Where were you, Bayley?" And she's like, "I don't know." So Bayley was somewhere and couldn't be found. And she's like, and then she was like, "Hey, I can help you get ready for your match." And then she didn't help her get ready for the match. And then right before the match for the main event, Kairi Sane was like, "No, you stay out here. We don't need you, Bayley." And then Bayley comes out and tried to help out and did help out, and then Kairi Sane lost. So they've already set the seeds for Damage Control breaking up and turning on Bayley.
Well, I don't think they're
quite
gonna break
obviously.
up. I think they're just gonna, I agree, and that's
they're
going
to kick Bayley out,
pretty much. And I think that's kind of like, you know what it reminds me of. And you're talking about copy and pasting stuff on the shows. What happened to Judgment Day was founded by who? Edge.
Who was Judgment Day founded by?
Edge.
Oh yeah.
And he brought in he brought in Damian Priest, he brought in Rhea, and then they brought in Finn. And then what happened? They turned on him. They kicked him out. Bayley founded Damage Control. She brought people in, brought them up, and now they're going to turn on her. So I like Bayley. I think she's a great performer. She's awesome on the mic. I thought that's why they did Damage Control, because it helps for like Kairi Sane, it helps for Asuka, it helps for Io Sky, who can't really that strong on the mic because English is their second language. So you have Bayley who can speak for them, right? And they can go do that back and forth banter. But yeah, I kind of saw it come in, and I think it's inevitable. Whether it blows up this month or at the Rumble is yet to be seen. It would be interesting to let it blow up at the Rumble, and maybe they have a spot where, as Damage Control, they clear the ring, and then Bayley wants to celebrate, and to celebrate, they throw her out as a team. I think that would be a good setup as the actual stamp of yes, now you're gone, But who knows? I'm not a booker. We'll see.
Who knows? But they're definitely going that direction. They absolutely set it up right out the gate. That okay, Bayley's on her way out, and they've already sowed the seeds of mistrust and all that going on. Right after that, next up was the Almighty Bobby Lashley versus Butch, which was speaking of filler matches. It was a total filler match. It was fine. It was exciting for what it was. You knew Butch wasn't going to win. They spent the entire time saying he's mostly a tag team wrestler. He's trying to break out into a singles competition. He's doing pretty well, all things considered. And then, of course, defeated by Bobby Lashley. So that one was pretty much par for the course. And
I hate that they changed him to Butch.
Seems somewhat rushed.
I wish they kept him as Pete Dunne.
Yeah.
I wish they would have kept him as Pete Dunne and just the bruiserweight.
Well, that's what I was like for a second. I was like, I'm like, oh, Butch, yeah. Well, I mean, they do a lot of rebranding, and he obviously is very talented. But as soon as you saw it, you're like, yeah, this is Bobby Lashley's obviously going to win. And obviously going to go over, and they think they've kind of set up him falling out with all of his buddies because he was like, I haven't heard from Sheamus in God knows how long, and he does this whole thing like staring off into the middle distance, worried about it. So they're working on angles there too. Right. And then we saw Santos Escobar again on his LWO Smackdown tour this week. Who was it? It was Joaquin Wilde. Was who he competed against. Very fast-paced matchup. Good matchup. Fast-paced. Probably closer to what we were hoping to see from the Dragon League match and Survivor Series, where I was like, okay, yeah, when you have a little bit of time to work, because that was always the complaint from us from the Survivor Series matchup, was it felt rushed and they didn't have enough time. So definitely much better matchup. Santos Escobar picked up the win, kept on afterwards, piling on, and then Dragon League came out for the save and looked pretty dominant in the save too. That's where I was a little confused that Dragon League went out there and just crushed him. And I was like, he's like, wow, he's really taking it to Santos. Santos looks pretty helpless. So that was a little strange the way that they set that up. But obviously that rivalry is going to continue. They're going to build off of that. Maybe give it its actual due diligence. Yeah, because I was like, if they just ended the way they ended at Survivor Series, that would have been a bummer. So they're going to get an opportunity to make that one up.
And I look forward to that. That would be an amazing, even if they make it to where now Dragon League is going to get one up on Santos, and then they have the rubber match, right, to like end it up and maybe make that a traditional lucha libre match. To be like, you know what, we're both wrestled from Mexico, both from Mexico. Like, let's do a traditional lucha libre. Let's expose the American crowd to what a traditional, 20 count outside the ring, all that stuff. All the high flying rules, everything involved that goes with it. Like, it's that would be awesome, but. One can hope.
Yeah. One can hope. At least it does feel like they're gonna do their due diligence at this point, and kind of let that continue to play out a little bit more. Next up, we had a Logan Paul sighting backstage, and he comes out a little bit later. We'll get to that. And then there was the little teaser with Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis. Going back and forth about who's going to sign Randy Orton and doing the pissing contest,
free agent thing.
There was also the hottest free agent. We got to re-sign him. What are you going to give him? And so they're doing that, and that of course pays off after the main event. So very much like Raw, there's a big talking segment after the main event, and then Paul Heyman came out and confronted Nick Aldis about trying to sign Randy Orton as well. So that all plays out later on, and then we get to probably the most painful segment, which was the worst U.S. champion in WWE history, Logan Paul, coming out to the ring, just cutting this awful promo. Which, first off, they cut to the flashback of his victory at Crown Jewel, which is now been added to the list of terrible decisions that have been made at the Saudi Arabia shows. I'm looking at you, Goldberg versus The Fiend, and I'm looking at you, Goldberg and Undertaker.
It's God, don't remember that one.
The list of hot garbage that happened in Saudi Arabia just added another one, obviously, with Logan Paul's U.S. Championship victory.
Right.
And then he cut just this absolute, I guess it was supposed to be a heel promo, but he was just like, it really sounded more like Logan Paul just speaking from his heart, where he's like, haters gonna hate, y'all hating on me. And then he starts yelling, and it turned into like this weird shrieking where I was like, this is actually him just yelling because he's like trying to be passionate. And just, you would think somebody who's made an entire living off of social media would be better on the mic. Because
he's an influencer. He's used to just starting shit. He's used to starting stuff that's not going to pay off at the end.
But he sounded flat. He didn't sound great. And then he mentioned that, and then he also reminded everybody that the U.S. title has touched his junk, which reminded everyone that whoever wins it next needs to have it melted down immediately or retire the title, retire the U.S. title. Yeah, just come up with something brand new. Say Logan Paul's the last person to touch it. It's going into quarantine. Then he announced a U.S. title tournament that was going to be coming up, and he listed off Santos, Dragon Lee, Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory, Kevin Owens, Grayson Waller, and then he goes and NXT superstar could be anybody. And I was like, how much is this? Logan Paul forgot who the NXT person was, and they hadn't picked it yet. And then I saw
they probably just
on the graphic,
make it a
they had the
surprise.
question mark. Yeah, but he said it like, somebody from NXT, and I'm like,
some guy
nice job,
from another brand is going to be here.
Some guy.
Stay tuned.
And it was. I was like, man, this is vintage Logan Paul just not being prepared. And he's like, somebody could be anybody. All right, anyway, and then of course KO's music hits and comes out, calls Logan Paul a jackass, and among other things. They argue back and forth. You get Grayson Waller and Austin Theory coming down, an argument, and basically you end up with Kevin Owens versus Grayson Waller, which was a fine match. Ended with a surprise roll up because we have to have at least one surprise roll up per show apparently. At least one.
Sometimes two.
KO with the surprise roll up.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it. I mean, I've never been a fan of Logan Paul personally. Even his old influencer thing, and it's. But of course, WWE, CM Punk's prime example, they're gonna go for the money, right? He brings a new audience on board. He brings a new crowd. When you talk about the streaking that he was doing, that's what happens when you have an influencer who has had no training with wrestling. I mean, he has trained at the Performance Center from what I've seen. I think Shawn Michaels trained him and stuff, which is great, but
physically, he can do some cool. Like, I'm not going to take away from his.
He has a very clean frog. Like, I love his frog splash.
He had that spot with Ricochet. We had that coast to coast kind of the collision with Ricochet. He's done some very good things, and he's very athletic.
I think that's what gets me mad is that he's very good at it. Like, he's natural with it, and it's just he just needs work with that personality side of it. I don't think he knows how to be a heel. I mean, he knows how to be an asshole or a jackass, but he doesn't know how to be a heel, and it's different. It's like,
just you're not putting like some inflection in his voice would be nice, because when he was because he was on guest commentary for the KO one, which another thing I hate special guest commentary unless you've got somebody who can really talk.
He did pretty well on guest commentary.
I thought he was flat. There were times where he was. There were times when he was on commentary and he would say something clever, and he'd just be like, it's because KO he's an idiot, and then we'd be like, can you
he's a meanie.
Drop the monotone, I heard KO smells, and they should call him BO instead. And I'm like listening to going, well, this is like really flat. Like say something with a little more like the Miz on guest commentary is good, because the Miz will get going. I think you got to be very selective with who does it. But the whole time I was like, he feels kind of flat, and he feels like he's doing like middle school jokes. So I wasn't a fan of that. I wasn't a fan of that matchup at all, because it ended with a surprise roll up. They kind of played that KO has a hand injury, so we'll see how much this plays.
Yeah, they're messing with his hand because all he does plays
is punch
people.
Next week. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so they're like, all right, so this is obviously going to play into the tournament, and we'll see how that goes.
But you know what? One thing I will say about the tournament.
Oh, go ahead.
Right, sorry, real quick about the tournament.
Yeah,
I am glad they put Santos Escobar and Dragon Lee in it, because that is going to help push the feud. It gives the feud even more meaning. I mean, it already has meaning, right? But now there's more skin in the game, because there's a potential opportunity down the road. And of course, you have Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. What's going to happen if they get pitted together against each other? Now who's going to? Like, you know what I mean? So I like that. I like who they have.
There's some good storytelling that they can do.
Of course, and I like the NXT call up being a mystery. I feel that it may be Braun Breaker after all. I know they've been talking about calling him up. I think they even had speaking of calling back, they had they had Karrion Kross on there, which was interesting. I hadn't seen him in a while. So I'd be curious to see what he looks like now. Right. I mean, did he shave his head again, or did he keep the slick back look? We will find out.
We will certainly find out. I think in the promo photo he had the slick back look, but we'll see. We'll see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I'm having a coughing fit here. I'm all choked up by Logan Paul.
Is that damn Logan Paul? It's because he drank a prime drink. That's why.
It was
the chemicals.
I know it's killing.
It's not poison. Coconut water.
It's all poison from the prime drink. Apparently. And then we saw the video recap of CM Punk for Monday, so we'll skip that because you saw it on Monday. Mm-hmm. And then after that was Bianca Belair versus Kairi Sane, which we already talked about that one. Bianca Belair obviously came up victorious. They're going to continue on with the Bayley storyline. Final thing that happened was Randy Orton coming out to decide who he's going to sign with. Is it going to be Raw? Is it going to be SmackDown?
Who is he taking to the prom?
Who's he going with? And they have Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce down there, standing there waiting, like the prom dates, saying who's he going to give the rose to?
They got the
it's like The Bachelor, and so they're ready to go. And so Randy Orton comes down, and then Paul Heyman, who's of course just a national treasure, comes down and does his thing and talks about how the decision's going to be made for him, and the decision is going to be made by the bloodline. And then was Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa come running down to start fighting. So they come down and start wailing on Randy Orton, and then you got LA Knight running out for the save. Who LA Knight,
of course,
as far as I'm concerned, he got a good pop, and obviously people love him. So LA Knight, interestingly enough, is the one that comes out and makes the save for Randy Orton. And then Orton hit Jimmy Uso with the RKO. And then, of course, does the whole, he's got the 2 contracts, and, what's he going to do? Obviously, he throws away the Raw contract, signs the SmackDown contract, because on Raw they had promised him if he were to go, he would get a shot at the winner of the Seth Rollins Uso matchup on Raw. Whoever won that one, he was going to get the World Heavyweight title shot. Or if he was signed with SmackDown, Nick Aldis said he's going to get back at the guys who put him out 18 months ago. And so, of course, he was going to take that, and he's going to get back at the guys. And I think, obviously, it was more so because Paul Heyman came out and said that we're making this decision for you, buddy. Like, don't do it. You'll be safe on Raw. You'll be safe on Raw. So, of course, he was going to sign with SmackDown so he can get his revenge. Naturally, signs it, and then gives Nick Aldis an RKO. For good measure. By the way, man, even though Randy Orton's had that back surgery, still just hits a beautiful RKO. It still just looks picture perfect every single time. And then Roided Randy closed out the show, standing tall above everybody. So that was SmackDown, and it ended well.
It did. I liked that he stuck with SmackDown. We all knew he was going to SmackDown. Why they did the whole which way is he going to? He clearly said when he talked to Jay on Raw that he's gonna go after the bloodline, so it's obvious where he's gonna go. I think they should have done it more of I feel like they should have saved him more for bloodlines wondering, okay, we need in my opinion, this is just my whole fantasy booking in my head, they should have opened SmackDown inside the locker room of the bloodline, and of course Roman fuming because they let Randy Orton show up. And Paul Heyman's like, I'll take care of it. Then he tells Solo and Jimmy to go because, Jimmy now is the token get beat up dude. And he's not a tag team partner anymore. Apparently, he can't do anything else but get his butt kicked by everybody. So, whatever. So, I think they're going to, they should have done that aspect. They should have done it in a sense that, okay, go find him before he makes his way out here, make him regret coming down, blah, blah, blah. And then make it more of like Randy Orton hunting him down one by one. To where it ends in the main event segment of Roman Reigns finally frustrated because all his guys got knocked out and he's in the ring. He calls out Randy and Randy shows up. And then you have Nick Aldis come out and say, okay, you want him, you got to sign the SmackDown. Here's the contract. Sign the SmackDown. But do it from the ramp to the ring. You know what I mean? Do it like they're that far away from each other. Because you got to build that anticipation. You got to build that tension. So then now you can go and say, okay, now Jimmy wants retribution. Next week you're going to face Jimmy, and the next week you're going to face Solo. Now you're going to face Solo and Jimmy. And then you're going to face all 3 of us. But then Roman's never going to tag in. He's just going to sit down and chill while the other 2 do their part. Stuff like that, I think, would be much more entertaining week to week, and then have it boil over. Maybe Randy wins the Royal Rumble and he gets a title match, even after Roman Reigns doesn't want to give it to him. Now he's obligated to. Maybe if they don't give it to CM Punk, but there's many ways they could have gone with it. I don't feel the whole which one is he going to pick thing. I didn't care for that. I feel that could have just been avoided, and maybe they could have done a better backstage segment for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was kind of a lazy way out. It was like, let's use the least amount of work to try to get it to line this back up where he's going against the bloodline, because we didn't see Roman Reigns at all. He wasn't even on the show. It was Paul Heyman, and then of course the
Lackeys wasn't even there.
But no, I don't think he was. And so it was just kind of it felt a little flat. I worry that it's a similar, are you just setting this up before the Royal Rumble? Is this filler too? Is Randy Orton not going to actually really have a chance to get revenge against Roman Reigns? I don't know that he's going to take the title off him. I think now they've committed to, they're going to let Phil have that. Mr. Phil Brooks is going to be able to have that honor, sadly, if he makes it that far, which is crazy because Randy Orton, especially roided Randy, looks like a real threat. He looks like somebody who really could threaten Roman Reigns. So I think it's a shame. I think this would be a good opportunity to have them have a really good feud and culminate that with Randy Orton beating Roman Reigns. Yeah. But that's certainly not going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, well. But we'll see. We'll see how they unfold, how it unfolds. We'll see what they do with it. And I mean, now all the pieces are in place, so time to see what happens.
No, yeah, everything's in place for this Monday Night Raw. What are we expecting for Monday Night Raw this week? Obviously, we've got the
championship match between Jay and Seth Rollins, which of course we know Seth's going to win just because. You know,
yeah, Jay's going to win. Champion. We're calling it now. It was going to win with interference from Drew McIntyre,
more than likely, or Jay's not even going to make it to the ring. Because Drew's going to just beat the holy hell out of him.
It's one of those. He's unconscious outside. Oh, no, what happened? Yeah, there's going to be something will happen, but obviously we're not going to see a title change on Monday Night Raw. I'm trying to think of what other...
They haven't announced
what other big matches were announced. I haven't heard.
No, but I think that we'll more than likely see something with the Creed brothers since they're the number one contenders now with Judgment Day. Maybe kind of start something there with Judgment Day. I don't know if it's them interfering in the Creed brothers match or them just kind of confronting them. Because if you notice during Raw, Finn Balor came out and was the whole one where I want to say it was towards the beginning or middle when Damian Priest was all mad about losing the Survivor Series game. Finn came out. He's like, "Hey, you guys see these Creed brothers? They're really good. You know, they're pretty talented." Like he's kind of putting them over verbally, which kind of tells me they might put the titles on them, which I'm hoping because that would be great. But nothing against Finn Balor or Damian Priest, but I would love to see them work as individuals, especially if CM Punk's here to like play ball and be good. CM Punk Finn Balor would be awesome. So I mean, I don't know, but. I think that's probably where they might go with that. There's some good possibilities.
But we'll see where it goes. I think big ifs. I think the only thing substantial for SmackDown is CM Punk's going to be on this week. So I will be tuning out. I'm just kidding. I'll be watching that segment with the sound off. But CM Punk's going to make his return and probably. And this is, I guess, going to be my bet of the over/under of. When's he going to have a match? Not anytime soon. It sounds like it's going to be him just going back and forth on shows and cutting promos for a while.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what's promos or backstage interviews. One of the two.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And then over under on an AJ sighting. Not
soon,
this
hopefully.
Week. Ain't going to happen on SmackDown. We'll
Royal
see.
Rumble. Royal Rumble. That's when we'll see
Royal
AJ.
Rumble. Maybe. Yeah. Possibly. Maybe in the Women's Royal Rumble. That'd be cool.
That's what I'm saying.
She came running down during the Ladies Royal Rumble.
That music hit, and she comes skipping down. I don't know. Yeah. That's a long skip, though. That's a really long skip to make.
Yeah. That's a long distance. She'll have to walk at least part of it. They'll drive her down. It'll be like when they wheeled Andre the Giant out there in the little thing. She can just be skipping in place while they just drive her down. But yep, that is it for our recap this week of Raw and SmackDown. We hope you all have enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're seeing this on YouTube or wherever you're seeing it. Catch us next time. We'll see you next week, and we'll talk to you soon.
See ya.